Now, in the year ahead, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong will embark on a series of global visits, navigating a world marked by instability and tense relations. Analysts say defence, trade and investment will remain high on his agenda.
I, Lawrence Wong.
After taking the helm in May 2024, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong swiftly made his mark on the global stage, establishing himself as a leader amid growing international challenges. He represented the city-state at high-profile events like the ASEAN Summit and the G20 Summit, all part of a strategic push to keep Singapore relevant and bolster its position even as the world grows more dangerous and unpredictable.
That's why we have to work even harder to strengthen our network of friends and partners and to work with like-minded countries to shape international norms and rules and to find common ground on issues of shared concern.
The Prime Minister has warned that rising tensions between the US and China will affect the city-state's economy and the region. In a national address, he identified the intensifying rivalry as Singapore's top geopolitical concern. The PM has also cited the importance of freedom of navigation, international law and peaceful resolution to avoid conflict in the region. On his radar, ongoing disputes over islands in the South China Sea. While Singapore has no claims there, increased tensions could disrupt trade, raise insurance costs and impact inflation.
So the question is how to manage that friction, because if these frictions flare up into crises, into more open confrontation, that will have very big and negative knock-on implications for Singapore.
Political watchers say peace and stability for Singapore means maintaining robust relations with its neighbours. One of Mr Wong's top priorities in 2024 has been to reaffirm ties with friends in the region, with a whirlwind tour to 5 of them, most recently for the annual Leaders' Retreat in Malaysia. Experts also say defence and security relations are important with major powers like the US, China and India. The island state has to adapt to shifting global dynamics without picking one side.
The Wong administration will want to shore up key security relationships as well. The United States primarily, but also Australia, other members of the Five Powers Defence Arrangement. The PRC is probably going to be important to speak with because they are a major security actor in this region.
And observers say security ties are vital for the survival and prosperity of Singapore's small and open economy. That's why trade and investment will be a key foreign policy objective in 2025, with Mr Wong tasked with promoting open commerce in an increasingly protectionist world.
While he will continue the substance of Singapore's foreign policy, what we may see is how he put forth his own style, how he wants to carve his own imprint and make his mark on the world stage.
Making that mark means shaping Singapore's future and redefining its global role as Mr Wong carves out his own path and navigates the challenges of a rapidly changing world.
So PM Wong picking up on his pace on foreign engagements the last 3 months. We saw that. He has more trips in store. Professor Tan, what do you think are his foreign policy priorities for 2025, given the fractious geopolitical climate and a new US president who will be sworn in next week?
Well, I think, it's no different from his predecessors. So one is, of course, to increase the strategic space that Singapore operates, and to ensure, that our interests, our national interests are promoted and protected. And I think as the story pointed out, given our dependence on trade and investment, and with the world more protectionistic, I think, the multilateralism is not working so well. And so it requires, states like Singapore, not to remain silent, but to rally like-minded countries, to ensure that the multilateral system, continues to be able to promote global trade and investment. I think, if we look further in terms of its foreign policy objectives, I think that is also to show that, even in a more uncertain, volatile world, that Singapore remains, a very reliable partner, bilaterally as well as multilaterally. And that, our foreign policy is very much based, on international law as well as international rule of law. Because I think for a small state like ours, it becomes important, that the international environment, doesn't become, the law of the jungle, that you do have rules. And it's important for a country like Singapore, not just to play by those rules, but to also to ensure, that those rules continue to remain relevant, and observed, by as many countries as possible. I think in terms of the US, I think Singapore will always work with any administration in America. We have common interests, mutual concerns. And I would say that, whether that relates to defense, innovation and technology, trade and investments, I think it's critical, that, we continue to keep the US engaged in this part of the world. And I would say that, we can expect, Singapore to, notwithstanding what has been said about, Trump 2.0, that we will try to develop relations further. And I think that's really, the commonality of interest, and we have, good trade relations to the US. I think we are not, we have a trade deficit, so I don't think tariffs would be something that we'd be too concerned about. But I think overall, we want to show that we are a reliable partner. We are a relevant player, in many different aspects in the international forum. And I think that's critical.
Professor Tan talked about multilateralism, and in trying to develop our relations further, PM Wong said back in November 2024 that Singapore will continue to advocate for multilateralism. Dr. Tan, how do you see this informing Singapore's foreign policy choices?
I think, we have to understand that Singapore's foreign policy has always, rests on or predicated on multilateralism, and that is through many generations as well. And so this is no different from those previous prime ministers that we have had. What is important here right now is that there is more important now, more so now, to ensure that such multilateralism continues and that will benefit Singapore in the long term as well. As I think Eugene has mentioned as well, we are seeing conflict between US and China, and there'll come to a point in time where Singapore has to take sides, unfortunately. And so being in multilateral organizations, it helps as well, because, they're trying to not take sides, or at least so obvious about it. And I think that will definitely help. So I think Singapore will maintain that sort of multilateralism continually, and it's part of the policy, it's part of foreign policy, and it will be so for a long time.
Singapore always navigating the challenges of a rapidly changing world. Professor Tan, Dr. Tan, thank you so much for coming in tonight to share your perspectives with us. That was Associate Professor Eugene Tan from the SMU School of Law and independent political observer, Dr. Felix Tan.